As an Airbnb host and investor managing nearly 40 properties, I thought I had it figured out until I got hit with a few legal issues all in the same month. And I was like, you know what? Might need to do a little bit of realigning. Let's figure out what's going on and make sure it's all fixed moving forward. So I did what anybody does. I called my lawyer, who told me I have the wrong lawyer. What it really means is I didn't know who to actually call because there are multiple types of real estate lawyers out there. If you're a new Airbnb or real estate investor and you're trying to figure out who do you need on your legal team, I made a video to help identify that so it can save you some time, make it a little bit easier on you. Here are 7 key types of lawyers that every Airbnb host is going to need in 2025. And I promise you, a couple will surprise you. Number 1, an eviction lawyer. Because you know what? Sometimes you have midterms, sometimes you have long terms, sometimes you have short terms. But either way, when you write up your lease or any type of agreement for people to stay in your property, you need to make sure it's written perfectly to meet whatever your state's required laws are. So no, I'm not an attorney, but definitely consult with your own. So what does an eviction lawyer do anyway? They specialize in all the complex rules around removing tenants and guests, especially in cities where short-term stays can sometimes blend into looking like tenant rights. And most painfully, some guests just learn the law just so they can take advantage of it, and you need to be protected. So here's why it matters for Airbnb hosts. Even short-term stays can trigger tenant rights. This is most common when guests stay past 30 days. In places like California or New York, removing a guest without a formal eviction is illegal and could lead to massive fines or lawsuits. Here's when you should call them. When guests overstay past reservations, guests refuse to leave, local laws treat your guests as tenants, you're being accused of unlawful eviction. And truly, there's a number 5. Number 5 would be making sure that before people even stay at your property, you understand the laws regarding what your property has to go through and what you have to do as the landlord or the co-host or the property manager. There are different rules for different situations, and you need to know them. And you will definitely want to put some of that language into some of the disclosures or the contract before people stay at your house. That way you're protected ahead of time. This is a good segue into the second lawyer, the contract lawyer. What do? Just as you could guess, they draft, review, and prepare legal documents to make sure you are covered. They do a variety of legal binding documents and agreements that will help protect you in different settings and with working with certain people like this that will help protect you as a co-host, a property manager, a landlord, working with your cleaners, working with your maintenance people, investors, or guests. Here's why it matters for hosts. Verbal agreements can blow up in your face. Without proper contracts, you're legally vulnerable to wage claims, disputes over ownership, or accusations of discrimination or breach of terms. When should you call them? When you're drafting co-hosting or cleaning service arrangements, setting terms for long-term guests for stays with Airbnb, when you're protecting your IP, and even when you're trying to create partnerships to buy properties with other people. And now another great segue, because sometimes when people are putting together partnerships, they put together a much larger and unique type of structures that require something called an SEC attorney. SEC attorneys are pretty awesome, but they are not cheap. Let's say you have a really big deal that you want to raise some money for, and you're like, man, I'm going to need more partners than I thought. That's when you get into something called capital raising. And when you're doing capital raising, you're trying to get money from other parties that you're hoping will give you money so you can run a deal. And when you're capital raising for people that are typically going to be considered limited partners, sometimes they don't have a whole lot of say in how their money is going to be managed. So that means that you have a legal obligation. You have a custodial responsibility to those funds. So obviously most people are not going to be jerks and they're not going to do a Ponzi scheme. However, there's a reason why these attorneys exist. And unfortunately, some people take advantage of some partners, and that's a terrible thing to do. And you should never do that. If you're going to get into this business, definitely just stop while you're ahead. So what the SEC attorney can do for the general partner, the person raising the capital and running the deal, they can help set it up so you are legally raising money, because there's some marketing constraints to that, while complying with federal and state laws. And yes, this even goes for friends and family. And remember, it's not just about protection. Sometimes it's also about the operational function, and you need to know what your responsibilities are as a managing member of this new company. And the best person to tell you is the SEC attorney. So why does it matter to Airbnb hosts? The second you pull money from others, you might be creating a security. If you mess this up, you're looking at fines, maybe even jail time. Those can end up with some nasty lawsuits and potentially being barred from ever raising capital again. So just do it right the first time. When should you call them? When you're forming an Airbnb syndication or fund, offering ownership stakes in exchange for capital, and accepting investor money from across state lines, and sometimes even using crowdfunding platforms. No matter what, you just want to make sure you're doing it the right way, because it just takes one bad apple or one mishap and people get really bent out of shape, and that can turn into a nasty lawsuit, whether you meant to or not. And boom, another excellent segue. What do you need if it does turn into a lawsuit? That's when you need the litigation lawyer. What do? They represent you in court when it comes down to litigation. And sometimes they handle the pre-trial matters, like depositions, settlements, or demand letters. Here's why it matters for Airbnb hosts. Eventually, someone Someone may sue you, a guest, a neighbor, a city, or even your own partner. You also might need to file a claim that Airbnb just won't help you with, and they won't touch it. Therefore, you need to find additional means to support your need for getting reimbursed. So when do you call them? Suing a guest for property damage, defending against personal injury or discrimination claims, handling city lawsuits and citations, or you and your partner aren't seeing eye to eye and one of you believes somebody did something wrong and you need somebody to help settle it. As for the next type, the business divorce lawyer. They specialize in dissolving partnerships, LLCs, and joint ventures. They ensure equity is split legally and liabilities are contained. Why does it matter? So many Airbnb businesses start with friends and family just saying, hey, I think we have a dream we can build and it's a great dream and it's awesome, but you need to know how it will possibly end up with an exit. Why? Because everything will eventually end. Doesn't mean it ends on bad terms, but people's situations change and there's this thing called death that is kind of inevitable. So you need to be prepared for even that. But honestly, these can be very helpful ahead of time because let's say it's getting pretty nasty with you and your partners and you're like, man, I wish we would have identified this issue ahead of time so we were prepared and we knew exactly which course of action to take before we got here. This is where the divorce lawyer is really going to be helpful because they're going to see things that are coming down your way before you even get there because they've seen all the crazy court cases. They know what to do and they're going to be able to help you ahead of time because the truth is without exit terms, things get ugly fast. So when should you call them? The best time to call them is before you get deep into a partnership. While you're still in that, hey, I know we want to work together, but I'm not sure how far this is going to go. Let's iron out a couple of things before we get too deep in the mud. And if it's already past that, like I've been in the past too, it's once you are at the point of exiting a partnership, when you're trying to buy out a silent investor, when you're dividing up property ownership, when you're enforcing or challenging the operations of the agreement. 2 more to go. Number 6, the commercial lawyer. They can help you buy, lease, and negotiate all kinds of real estate transactions. And sometimes they're also helpful for when you are converting or managing different types of properties or changing the type of business use. Here's why it matters. Commercial leases often include no subletting clauses. Some buildings have restrictions that Airbnb won't catch, but your lawyer will. So when should you call them? When you're buying multifamily or mixed property use, negotiating a commercial level lease to Airbnb deal, dealing with landlords or commercial brokers, or you're ensuring building codes will allow for STR. And now number 7, one of the last types of attorneys I've ever needed is the zoning and land use lawyer. They interpret and help you comply with municipal zoning law, STR regulations, and city permits. They also can help you appeal fines or rezoning requests. Now this is a growing niche, and it definitely matters for Airbnb hosts. Short-term rentals are banned or restricted in many cities, and laws are changing constantly. Fines can start at $500 per day, and sometimes they get up to many thousands. So whatever you're doing, you definitely want to make sure you have something locked in before you buy these STRs to make sure your zoning is legit. So lately, I've been actually recommending that people get together with a zoning attorney to make sure that they have something from the city stating that they will be considered in grandfathered use prior to them purchasing the property. That won't always work, but it's definitely worth making that call these days. So kind of recapping on this, before you buy a property, you want to verify that STR will be friendly or at least possible once you've bought it, when you're appealing citations or shutdown orders, or when you're getting variances, permits, or rezoning approvals. So here you have it. 7 lawyers every serious Airbnb host is going to need to consider at some point if they're going to have a long and fruitful career. The eviction lawyer for when guests become tenants, contract lawyer to keep every agreement airtight, the SEC lawyer for when you're raising money with investors. Number 4, the litigation lawyer for when things get legal fast. Number 5, the business divorce lawyer because partnerships don't always last. Number 6, the commercial real estate lawyer to protect your commercial deals. And finally, number 7, the zoning and land use lawyer so you can stay compliant and not canceled. I know it sounds like a lot, and trust me, it can be, but protection is profit. The investors and hosts who treat this thing like a business are the ones that are still standing when everything hits the fan. And if you're ready to go from hobby host to high-level operator, it's time to surround yourself with people who have already built real portfolios and know how to do it right. Check out our group STR Legend when you get a chance. This is where the top investors come to grow smarter, scale faster, and stay legally protected while being in a community of people that have your back. There's a link below so you can book a one-on-one call. Let's build a legacy, and I'll see you inside.